got a chance to do one thing that every team in the country can't do. We got a chance to step up, man. We got a chance to step on the ledge, you know what I mean? And to me, I think it's a free fall. To be elite, you got to think a free fall. That means you can't be afraid to go to the edge. And coach said jump. You said how far, coach? Where you want me to go? Every guy got a chance to do that today. If you're elite, grab somebody today. Take him with you. There's no more average in this program. There's no more average in this program.
Billy Napier is on the hottest seat imaginable for him, but is it exactly justified? We're going to discuss that today in this Florida preview. But hi, everybody. I am Colin Bashnickel, your host here at Bashers College Football Show. You can find all my links to my socials down below, including my TikTok that I put right under my name, where you can find me and be able to talk to me more in a lot easier of a method. So today we're going to be talking about Florida, and you guys are starting to get used to how these previews are going. And I just want to say thank you guys, by the way, for all the support. Getting as many views as I did on West Virginia is big time for me, and we keep on getting better and better as time goes on. I appreciate if you guys have any sort of criticism or something for me to learn, as I am new to this and trying to make myself better every single day. Make sure you comment down below. If you got a criticism, I will take that. I will take that criticism all day. So the Florida Gators come in to 2024 off of a 5-7 season, which wasn't necessarily disappointing because people weren't high on Florida, but definitely not meeting the standard that the Florida Gators have as a football program. Like, that's definitely for sure, and I think every single Florida fan will 100% agree on that. But the expectation is kind of the same this year. You know, you come into the year, you got a win total of around 4.5. Everybody's seeing your schedule, and you're like, my gosh, that is so intense. But really, if they were to have the same schedule 15 years ago under Urban Meyer, you wouldn't be saying, oh my gosh, I don't even know if they can win a game. You would be saying, oh my gosh, these are going to be incredible games. I think Florida might have a good chance to win a lot of them. That's what you're going to get. Now, we got to talk about the roster movement that had happened. If this team is going to be better than a year ago, I think this could possibly, after looking at them, guys, I think that this could possibly be a situation where the team is better, but the record won't indicate it. So we got to start with talking about the two key departures to the NFL. Kingsley Aguakin, I think that's how you say it, Aguakin. I heard it pronounced so many times, but never can get it in my head. I was just watching something on him during the draft prep too. And then Ricky Parasol, their big-time wide receiver. He transferred in from Arizona State, and then he had like a big-time highlight reel at Florida with a bunch of insanely cool plays. So those are two guys that they're definitely going to be missing, specifically talking about Ricky Parasol, trying to replace a great skill position player like that. Not super easy. Then transferring out, the quarterback Max Brown, who got a little bit of run. He's going out to Charlotte. Not a big notable one, but the big notable one that everybody's going to point to is running back Trevor Etienne going off to Georgia. Now, Trevor Etienne is not necessarily the greatest when it comes to pass protection, and he's not the greatest when it comes to just being able to lay his life on the line on the football field, at least physically. He might not be able to. I'm not saying anything demeaning about the kid, but he's a heck of a player when the ball's in his hands, and nobody's going to be able to deny that, and that's going to be something that this team is going to be missing. Wide receiver Caleb Douglas is going off to Texas Tech. Then you get a couple of interior offensive linemen going in. Richie Leonard off to Florida State and Micah Maskua going over to Nebraska, as we discussed that. He was actually a guy competing for a starting spot last year, and now he's going over to Nebraska where he's probably not going to start. On the defensive side of the ball, they lost Princely Uman-Milan. I believe that's how you say it, Uman-Milan. Ole Miss. He's gone. He's a heck of an edge rusher. He's an amazing defensive player, defensive line edge kind of hybrid right there. So missing Uman-Milan is going to be a big deal right there. Chris McClellan going off to Missouri, the interior defensive lineman. Big time loss is Scooby Williams going over to Texas A&M. This kid is an absolute stud, a freak show, great linebacker, super talented kid. Also the Texas A&M cornerback Jaden Hill. Same with Jalen Kimber going off to Penn State at the cornerback spot, and Miguel Mitchell heading off to Arkansas. Really good player for this Florida team last year, going off to Arkansas, which was a big add for Arkansas. Definitely a loss that Florida would have probably preferred not to have. But when you talk about this Florida team, you got to start at the top, and you got to start with the quarterback position and what they have for 2024 as we're breaking this squad down. In 2024, they got the young guy, DJ Lagway, coming in. He is so talented, guys. I'm telling you, I'm really high. I think he's probably the best true freshman quarterback out there. I'm a big Julian Sayin guy, too. I think both Aaron Nolan and Julian Sayin are going to be really good football players. I think Ryan Puglisi is going to be good at Georgia. I think Dylan Raiola is looking like he's going to be a great fit at Nebraska as long as the kid sticks it out. But the best of them all is probably DJ Lagway, the quarterback going to Florida here, and he is an absolute monster. Will he touch the field this year, though? I'm not sure, and I don't know if you guys heard the police sirens going by, but I'm not sure. QB Graham Mertz, he's coming back. He looked good last year, like a revitalized version of himself. We remember his first start in the COVID year. He lit up Illinois, throwing one incompletion out of about 21 passes, I think it was. Yeah, and then he fell off a cliff at Wisconsin, and now he's over at Florida. He has a pretty solid season last year, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be hard for DJ Lagway to be able to dethrone and take that spot. And, of course, the kid DJ Lagway wants to play, but he's also not going to be forced into it because you got somebody steady hand like Graham Mertz. And I think Graham Mertz has a maturity that he's going to be able to help DJ kind of get used to the speed of the college game a little bit. But DJ is a super mature kid, and I really like him. And that's enough just love for the quarterback, the backup quarterback at Florida. You got Graham Mertz. He's a stable piece. That's going to be nice to have. At the running back position, they do have Montrell Johnson coming back. So even though they lost Travis Etienne, he was part of a 1-2 punch. And one of those two was Montrell Johnson, who came in from Louisiana when Billy Napier came in. And the kid is an absolute stud. I really like this kid, Montrell Johnson. I've always really liked him. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do as a bell-tail back as he was in 2022. And he was pretty good in that role. At wide receiver, you're looking at a couple of players. Elijah Badger is coming in from Arizona State, another Arizona State transfer. Shamir DK coming in to reunite with Graham Mertz. He definitely was a fan of Graham's, right? He had to have been to follow him to Florida. Shamir DK, I think, is a really talented player that has to be in the right system, and I think he might have found it here with what Rob Sale and Russ Callaway is going to do on the offensive side. Then you have the guy coming back, Eugene Wilson. He's a sophomore. He's going to be an absolute beast at the wide receiver position. A couple of tight ends coming back. Arliss Boardingham, he's back. Same with Hayden Henson. He's back as well. So you get a couple of big-time tight ends, a lot of 12 personnel for Florida. It's going to be fun to see that. On the offensive line, you get guys like Austin Barber back, Damian George, the former Alabama transfer back, and you're also bringing in Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, who is probably going to start at a tackle spot. He's a transfer from San Diego State, a really solid player I want you guys to keep an eye on. And then also an interior offensive lineman, is Jason Zammila coming in from USC. He's definitely more of a depth piece, but I just figured I would mention that real quick. Edge rusher on the defensive side. You want to talk about edge? Well, you got Tyreek Sapp. He's coming back for another year. Then you add George Gums Jr. coming in from Northern Illinois. He's going to be a good depth piece as well. But the guy that's definitely going to start for this team is Justice Boone, who's going to be kind of a hybrid linebacker edge rusher role. And on the interior, Cam Jackson is an absolute monster to be able to watch out for. He's a really good player. And then they added Joey Slackman, one of the better prospects on the defensive line from Penn that a lot of people don't talk about. He's going to be in the 2 deep. He might not start, but he's going to get some run in the rotation. At the linebacker spot, Grayson Howard, a big-time add through the transfer portal from South Carolina. He's going to start for this defense along with Shamar James, the returning starter. And then in the secondary, they had a little bit to replace, but Jason Marshall Jr. is back at corner. Then Tyquise Bridges comes in from Oregon. He's going to try to push for a little bit of playing time, especially in that 2 deep. But you're probably going to see like Devin Moore and Sharif Denson. They're going to be able to play. And Denson is really a kid that you haven't seen play too much, that a lot of Florida fans are expecting to kind of break out a little bit. At least, I mean, as far as I've heard from a couple of Florida fans. Jordan Castell, safety, beast, monster in the deep end. And then you also bring in Asad Turner coming in from Washington. He's likely going to start. DJ Douglas, a depth piece from Tulane. So overall, this roster actually returns a lot more production than you would really think. They are talented. They are pretty good. But overall, you're looking for depth, right? And this is Dan Mullen's recruiting that is hitting their effect. It really peaked last year, but you're still kind of feeling the effect of it. Dan Mullen did not recruit at all in 2021. And you're seeing it. That 21 and 22 class wasn't great for Florida. You're going to see depth be a problem. But the starting lineup, as I was mentioning, pretty good. They don't have depth on defense at all. Like they have a couple of really good linebackers, a couple of pretty solid defensive linemen. Adding Joey Slackman, that's why that was big to help with the depth there because he's a good player that's going to be in the 2 deep. And I think corner might be their more deep spot, but I don't think it's up in talent is really there. Like Jason Marshall's really good, but the rest of them kind of have to fill in and be able to become really good players over at Florida. All right, so with that being said, we're going to get straight into the schedule predictions for the Florida Gators, and we're going to start with a loss against the Miami Hurricanes. Listen, I think that this is going to be a really good game, high intensity. The Swamp is insane. I can see them losing or winning. This is a 50-50 toss-up to me. I want to see if Miami's for real. They're going to have a chance to prove it week 1 against an in-state rival. They have more talent than Florida does, especially depth-wise. They have a lot more talent. And not being a deep team, you see how backloaded the schedule is. It is important for Florida to win these early games, and I think it's going to be important for them to win this one, despite the fact that I have them losing. I think they beat Samford, though. If you guys remember, they had kind of like a little bit of a shootout a couple of years ago. Was it Florida and Samford? Where Samford almost beat Florida. I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think they win no problem in that game. Texas A&M, I already did the preview on it. A lot of people criticized me a little bit for that Texas A&M picking Florida to win. I think this is going to be a game that they're not supposed to win, that they end up finding a way to win. I just think that the Swamp is a very tough place to play. It was the same reason I almost flipped that Miami pick. Florida can either start their season off with disaster, or they could really start off their season hot. And I think I'm going to meet you somewhere in the middle with this, losing to the rival, beating Texas A&M, who's going to be unsuspecting going into that game, thinking that they're really hot and tough because of the first game that they won against Notre Dame. So I'm going with Florida in that game. And that Mississippi State game, I think it's going to be a really tough road trip after a win against Texas A&M. I could see this going the other way. I could see this being a loss. But I'm not high on Mississippi State. I'm not high on Blake Shapen. I'm not high on what they're going to be able to do over there. So give me Florida to win that game. I went back and forth with this one, man. UCF is going to go in there. It's a night game in the Swamp. And that's really my hang-up. UCF's going to go in there. They're going to want something to prove. They feel like the underdog, no matter if they are or not. They have a really good roster, a really good team. I like what Gus Malzahn is doing there. But I just think the Swamp at night is just going to be too much. And they do have at Florida the top-end talent to compete with a lot of these teams. And their top-end talent might be just slightly better than UCF's top-end talent. Even if UCF, I can't believe I'm saying this, probably has a little bit more depth. Tennessee on the road. I am high on Tennessee this year. Love Nico Iamaleava. I think that Tennessee is going to win that game pretty handily to drop Florida to 4-2. And then I think Florida comes off of that game. They beat Kentucky before losing to Georgia and Jacksonville. Now, Kentucky, I am not that low on Kentucky, but it's hard for me to buy into them. They never really can get over that. They never really can get over that hump to be able to actually compete in the SEC. And that's going to be something that is going to be amplified a little bit more because of the fact that they're not in a division where in the past it had been weak, and then Georgia took over that division, and now it's at best you're competing for second in the division, in which Kentucky hasn't really been able to do that. I like Kentucky. I don't love them. I'm taking Florida with the home field advantage to win this one. This is where it goes downhill. Georgia, I think they're going to get physically beat up, and this is right before the road trip to Texas. They're not winning either of these games. I can promise you that. They're losing these games, and they're going to come off of that beat up, and they're going to lose to LSU back at home. They are not a better team than Ole Miss. They're going to lose. And then I think they're going to play Florida State pretty inspired the same way that they did last year. They almost beat Florida State, albeit without Jordan Travis, and Florida State looked like absolute garbage. But I think that they lose again to Florida State. I trust in what they have going on over there at Florida State. But, you know, this would be a type of game that if Florida fans want Billy Napier fired, if he goes and beats Florida State at the end of the year, I think they keep him around. I think that's what they will do. What they should do is give him another year. We are too impatient with these guys. Billy Napier has to deal with two things. Number one, their NIL is a complete train wreck that got exposed with the Jaden Rashada mess that happened. And number two, Dan Mullen did not recruit at the end of his tenure. You gave him such a mess for the future, and it wasn't a great present either. Like, it wasn't something that they were going to have a team that was going to be absolutely fantastic, but in a couple of years, it is going to be tough. Like, he's going to have to hit the portal hard. He has done everything that he can to this point to make Florida successful. I am a believer that if you give Billy Napier time in a similar way that their arch rival Florida State gave Mike Norvell some time, I think Billy Napier next year is going to be able to turn that switch, flip it around. They got a lot of really good young players, and a lot of what I've talked about is guys through the transfer portal. Graham Mertz, transfer portal. Montrell Wilson, transfer portal. Talk about Damian George on the offensive line. He's transfer portal. This is just guys like on the offensive side that I'm just naming that were already on the roster, let alone their wide receiver room that's, basically going to be all transfer guys with Shamir DK and Elijah Badger. And, a Billy Napier recruit in Eugene Wilson. Like, I think that we got to be patient, Florida fans, with Billy. And that's going to be my plea for you, is just be patient, trust in the process, give him one more year beyond this year, because we all know that this year is going to be a pretty rough year for Florida. It's going to be a rough year if they have that schedule, a rough year for about 80% of teams in college football. That's just the truth. But with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. If you could comment down below what you think Florida is going to do and like the video, boost the algorithm. My West Virginia video did so good because of how many people decided to click like. It takes 2 seconds. Doesn't hurt you any. Like the video if you've made it this far. But for the rest of you, have a good day.